It was supposed to be a simple weekend in New Orleans, a 4-day conference for my firm, and they'd sprung for a decent hotel just off Bourbon Street that I'd managed to convince my girlfriend Vanessa to come along. "It'll be a vacation," I'd said. "You can explore the French Quarter while I'm in boring seminars, and at night we'll eat beignets and listen to jazz." She'd agreed, and for the first day and a half, it had been exactly that. Vanessa was the kind of woman who turned heads without seeming to notice. That first evening as we walked down Bourbon Street, the humid air thick with the smells of spilled beer, fried food, and something faintly metallic, I couldn't stop looking at her. She was wearing a simple black sundress, but the way it clung to her body was a kind of art. The straps were thin, digging slightly into the smooth tan of her shoulders. The neckline dipped just low enough to hint at the swell of her breasts, and the fabric stretched taut across her hips with every step she took. Her legs, long and toned from her obsessive Peloton routine, were bare, and her sandals showed off her pedicure. Her toes painted a deep, bloody crimson that I kept getting distracted by the way her calf muscles flexed with each step on the uneven cobblestones, a tiny, powerful motion that sent a jolt straight through me. "You're staring again," she said, a small knowing smile playing on her glossy lips. She didn't look at me, her eyes scanning the vibrant, chaotic street, the neon signs, the overflowing bars, the groups of laughing, stumbling people. "Can you blame me?" I said, my voice a little huskier than I intended. I slid my hand around her waist, my fingers splaying against the small of her back, feeling the warmth of her skin through the thin dress that I had a sudden vivid image of pushing that dress up her thighs, right here in the crowd, the thought so inappropriate and intense it made my face flush. The conference, the city, it all felt like a backdrop for her. That's when I first noticed the FOG.IT was a common enough sight on Bourbon Street, especially in the evenings. The balconies, draped with iron scrollwork and overflowing with partiers, often had automated fog machines that would periodically release a blanket of white mist down onto the street below, cooling the air and adding to the theatrical, otherworldly atmosphere. This particular plume was billowing from a second-floor balcony adorned with purple and green Mardi Gras beads that IT rolled over the railing in a thick, lazy wave, sinking down towards the crowd. As it reached us, I inhaled out of habit, and I stopped dead. IT wasn't the usual sterile, vaguely sweet smell of theatrical fog. This was different. This was specific. IT was the smell of my childhood home. Not the house itself, but the unique, unchanging scent of the hallway linen closet. A combination of my mother's lavender sachets, the faint, clean odor of bleach she used to wipe down the shelves, and the dusty, dry warmth of stacks of old towels and bed sheets. It was a smell so deeply buried in my memory I hadn't consciously recalled it in 20 years. It was a smell of safety, of afternoons spent building forts in the living room, of Saturday morning cartoons. And it was here now, on this debauched street in New Orleans. "You okay?" Vanessa asked, her smile fading as she felt me stiffen. "Yeah, did you smell that?" I asked, my voice shaky. She sniffed the air. "Smell what?" "Cheap whiskey and regret." She laughed, a light, musical sound that usually made my chest ache. Now it felt distant. "No, it was, never mind." I shook my head, trying to dislodge the bizarre sensory memory. "Weird fog machine, I guess. Let's find that place with the live music." The rest of the night was a blur of jazz and rum cocktails, but the smell lingered in my mind, a ghost I couldn't shake. Every time another fog machine hissed to life, I'd tense up, but the scent was always the standard, chemical one. The next day my conference sessions dragged. All I could think about was getting back to the hotel, to Vanessa. I found her by the rooftop pool, stretched out on a lounge chair. She was on her stomach, the strap of her bikini top untied to avoid tan lines. The smooth, perfect expanse of her back was glistening with sunscreen, tapering down to the tight knot of the bikini bottom and the incredible curve of her hips and ass. Her legs were stretched out, her feet bare, one foot gently rocking back and forth. I stood there for a full minute, just watching her, the professional anxieties of the day melting away under a wave of pure, primal want. I imagined tracing the line of her spine with my tongue, from the nape of her neck all the way down. She must have sensed me. She turned her head, her cheek resting on her folded arms, and smiled sleepily. "Hey you, how was the thrilling world of actuarial science?" "Dull. You're a much better view. I said, sitting on the edge of her chair. My hand found its way to her lower back, my thumb stroking the warm skin just above her bikini line. She arched into the touch almost imperceptibly, a cat-like gesture of pleasure. The contrast was jarring. The bright sun, the chlorinated water, her beautiful sun-warmed body, and the cold, lingering unease from the night before, still coiled in my gut. That evening, we decided to get dinner at a quiet-looking Creole place on a side street. The air was still thick and heavy as we walked. Another fog machine activated above us. This one was on a balcony shrouded in shadows, no revelers visible. The cloud descended and again the smell hit me, but it was sharper this time. It was the smell of the pine sol my dad used to mop the kitchen floor on Sunday nights, mixed with the faint, greasy scent of the fried chicken he'd always pick up from the same place afterward. I could almost hear the squeak of his sneakers on the linoleum. I froze, grabbing Vanessa's arm. Do you smell that? Fried chicken and cleaner? Vanessa sniffed, her nose wrinkling adorably. Mark, all I smell is garbage from that alley and, I don't know, cigar smoke? Are you feeling all right? You've been weird since last night. I'm fine, I said too quickly, but I wasn't. This was impossible. These weren't generic smells, they were hyper-specific memories, pulled from the deepest archives of my brain. I looked up at the balcony, but it was dark and empty. We got a table on the patio and I ordered a double bourbon. I was on edge, scanning the street, the passers-by. That's when I first saw him. He was sitting alone at a small wrought iron table across the street, outside a closed souvenir shop. He was just there. A man of indeterminate age, maybe 40, maybe 60. He had thinning, mousy brown hair and wore a simple, beige windbreaker that seemed too heavy for the weather. He wasn't doing anything. Not drinking, not reading, not on his phone. He was just sitting, perfectly still, his hands resting on his knees, and he was looking directly at me. Our eyes met, his were a pale, watery blue, and they held no expression. It wasn't hostile, or curious, or friendly. It was just observation. Like a scientist watching an insect. I looked away, a cold trickle of dread working its way down my spine. I took a large gulp of my bourbon, the burn doing little to warm the chill that had settled inside me. What is it? Vanessa asked, following my gaze. Who's that? I don't know. Some guy. He's just staring. Vanessa glanced over. He's probably just a tourist, Mark. Relax. She reached across the table and put her hand on mine. Her fingers were cool. I focused on them, on the delicate bones of her wrist, on the way her simple silver bracelet caught the light. I wanted to lose myself in her, to use her physical presence as an anchor against this growing, formless anxiety. I found my eyes drifting from her wrist, up her toned arm, to the neckline of her blouse. I could see the gentle movement of her breathing, the shadowed hollow between her breasts. The desire was still there, a hot, urgent current, but now it was tangled with the cold fear, creating a nauseating cocktail of emotions. When I looked back across the street, the man was gone, the chair was empty, the food came, but I had no appetite. Every shadow seemed to move, every distant laugh felt like a mockery. I was suddenly, acutely aware of how exposed we were on the patio. We decided to call it an early night. As we walked back towards our hotel, I kept glancing over my shoulder, my hand gripping Vanessa's a little too tightly. She didn't complain, but she was quiet, sensing my mood. Then, another fog machine. This one was from a balcony strung with fairy lights. The mist poured down, and this time the smell was so potent, so visceral, it stole my breath. It was the smell of my grandfather's pipe tobacco, a rich, sweet cherry blend, mingled with the musty old paper scent of his study and the distinct, waxy aroma of the crayons I kept in a tin box there. I was 6 years old again, sitting on the worn Persian rug, coloring while he smoked and read the newspaper. I gagged, stumbling to a halt. Jesus Christ. Mark? Vanessa cried, steadying me. What is wrong? The fog, I choked out. It's my grandfather's house. I can smell it. I can smell his pipe, Vanessa. Her face was a mask of confusion and concern. Honey, it's fog. It's all the same. You're exhausted, the conference, the travel. Let's just get back to the room, okay? I let her lead me, my head swimming. It wasn't exhaustion. I knew it wasn't. This was something else. Back in the hotel room, the familiar, sterile environment should have been a relief. But the dread had taken root that I poured myself a drink from the minibar while Vanessa went into the bathroom to shower. I stood by the window, looking down at the teeming, neon-lit street, the occasional plume of fog rising like a ghost from the balconies that I was looking for the man in the beige windbreaker that I didn't see him. The shower turned off. A few minutes later, Vanessa emerged, wrapped in a white towel. Her skin was flushed pink from the heat, droplets of water clinging to her collarbones and the smooth skin of her legs. Her dark hair was piled messily on top of her head, exposing the elegant line of her neck. Normally the sight would have been an invitation, a promise. Now it felt like a distraction I couldn't afford. My mind was a radar screen, scanning for threats. She came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist, pressing her damp body against my back. "Feel better?" she murmured into my shoulder. I could feel the soft pressure of her breasts, the warmth of her through my shirt. My body responded automatically, a low thrum of arousal, but my mind was screaming. He was staring, the fog, the smells, star. "A little," I lied. She turned me around, her hands sliding up my chest. Her face was tilted up to mine, her lips slightly parted. She was trying to pull me out of my head, to drag me back into the physical world, into her. And a part of me wanted to go, desperately. I leaned down and kissed her, hard. It was a kiss fueled more by fear and a need for oblivion than by passion. My hands went to her hips, gripping the towel, and I backed her towards the bed. But as we fell onto the mattress, a sound from the street made me freeze. It was the distinct, rhythmic hiss of a fog machine, closer than any before, right outside our window. Our room was on the 3rd floor. I scrambled off the bed and rushed to the window, pulling the curtain aside. There was no balcony directly outside our window, just the ornate facade of the building opposite. But the smell seeped in through the crack in the window I'd left open for air. This one was the most disturbing. It was the smell of the cheap strawberry-scented shampoo my first girlfriend, Becky, had used all through high school, mixed with the coppery, chlorinated scent of the water from the community pool where we'd had our first kiss. A wave of intense, cringe-inducing adolescent nostalgia and longing washed over me, so powerful it felt like a physical blow. "Mark, what is it?" Vanessa asked from the bed, her voice small, the mood thoroughly shattered. "Nothing," I said, my voice tight. I closed the window and locked it. "It's nothing." I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I started to drift off, I'd jerk awake, convinced I could smell something. My old dog, the interior of my first car, my high school gymnasium. The room felt like it was filling with the ghosts of my past, all carried on an invisible, scent-laden fog. The next morning, my final conference day, I was a wreck. Vanessa was quiet over breakfast, picking at a croissant. "I'm worried about you," she said finally. "Maybe you should see a doctor. It could be a sinus thing or, I don't know, a migraine aura. People smell strange things with those." "It's not a migraine," I said, rubbing my gritty eyes. "I know what I'm smelling, Vanessa. It's real." "How can it be real? How can fog smell like your grandfather's pipe? It doesn't make any sense." That was the heart of it. It didn't make sense. And the not knowing was a poison, seeping into everything. I went to my seminars in a haze. During a lecture on risk assessment models, my phone, which was on the table, lit up. A notification. I glanced down. It was a photo from my cloud storage, a memory from this day. It was a picture of me, aged about 7, sitting on the steps of my childhood home, holding a model airplane. A photo I hadn't looked at in decades. My blood ran cold. That wasn't how the memories feature worked. It showed you photos from years past, not from 25 years ago with such specific, poignant timing. I opened the photo app. My recent album was a mess. Pictures from our trip to New Orleans were interspersed with dozens of scanned, faded, old photographs from my childhood. Me on a swing set. My parents standing in front of our first Christmas tree. My grandmother holding me as a baby. They were all there, flooding my phone. Images I knew were stored in a physical album in my parents' attic, not on my device. I felt a surge of vertigo. I quickly closed the app, my hands trembling. This was beyond smell. This was a violation of my history, my memories being digitally vomited back at me. During the lunch break, I stepped outside for air. The sun was high and bright, baking the pavement. I leaned against the cool stone of the building, trying to steady my breathing, and I saw him again. The man in the beige windbreaker that he was standing across the street in the shade of an awning, just standing, staring at me, the same placid, empty expression on his face that a hot spike of anger shot through my fear. This had to be connected to him, that it had to be. I started walking towards him, my fists clenched, that I was going to confront him, demand to know what the hell was going on. He didn't move as I approached, that he just watched me, his head tilted slightly. When I was about 10 feet away, close enough to see the fine lines around his eyes and the cheap plastic texture of his jacket, he spoke. His voice was flat, devoid of inflection, like a text-to-speech program. "The lavender never quite masked the bleach, did it?" he said. I stopped dead, my anger evaporating, replaced by a terror so complete it felt like my skeleton was turning to ice. "The linen closet, the smell from the first night." "What?" I whispered. "Your father always got extra crispy," he continued, his pale eyes unwavering. "The grease would soak through the paper bag. The Sunday night fried chicken." He took a step forward, I took a step back. "You cried when you broke the red crayon," he said, his voice still a monotone. "The one from the tin box. You tried to melt it back together with your grandfather's lighter. You burned your fingers." I couldn't breathe. My heart was a frantic bird beating against my ribs. These weren't just smells, these were specific, forgotten moments, private, insignificant details of a life he had no business knowing. "Who are you?" I managed to gasp. He didn't answer. He simply looked past me towards the conference center, then back at me. "She has a mole. Just below her navel. On the right side. You like to trace it with your tongue." Vanessa. A wave of nausea so violent hit me that I doubled over, my vision spotting. When I looked up, he was gone, vanished. The space under the awning was empty. I stumbled back into the conference center, ignoring the strange looks I got. I found a secluded corner and called Vanessa. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. A cold fist clenched around my heart. I sent her a text. Asterisk, "Where are you? Are you okay?" Asterisk, no response. I left the conference, not caring about the sessions I was missing. I half walked, half ran back to the hotel, my mind racing with horrific possibilities. Had he done something to her?